When we think of scary diseases, we usually think of things like COVID-19, Ebola, maybe even the plague. But today we're going to be talking about one that's pretty old school, anthrax. Hi, I'm here with Minute Earth. Today we'll be running through some frightening facts about this disease, starting with its origin story. Anthrax is caused by a bacterium called Bacillus anthracis. These bacteria are rod-shaped, can reproduce on their own, and make a protective outer layer so they can survive in harsh environments like the outside world. And where did they come from? No one knows for sure, but because anthrax has been found preserved in ancient Egyptian mummies, scientists believe it's been around for at least 7,000 years. And evidence suggests that humans have been infected with anthrax for most of our history. For thousands of years, anthrax was thought to be a disease that only affected livestock. But now we know that's not true. While anthrax can infect wild and domestic animals alike, it doesn't just affect other animals. It affects people too. And although cases are rare, anthrax can be deadly if left untreated. So how does it do that? Anthrax spores, those hardy little protective shells I mentioned earlier, can survive in soil for decades. When conditions are right, they can then sprout into the kind of bacteria that can infect animals and people. And it can happen fast. A study published in 2016 estimated that at optimal temperatures, spores could grow into a dangerous number of bacteria within 2 days. As for how anthrax moves from animal to person, there are a few ways this can happen. But let's start with eating meat. That's how most anthrax infections occur. Humans who eat undercooked meat from an infected animal are susceptible to the disease, especially if they don't cook it thoroughly or keep it at safe temperatures during storage. Anthrax can also be contracted via cuts or scratches. In 2014, a woman in Colorado developed cutaneous anthrax after handling an animal that had been infected. And in 2001, a handful of cases occurred among workers at a tannery in Ohio. And if all of this sounds scary, well, it is. From 2003 to 2013, the CDC reported about 14 cases of anthrax per year on average. But these numbers may be low estimates, since anthrax can be hard to identify. Not every case gets reported. The symptoms of anthrax can look like other illnesses. Fever, weakness, and fatigue are common signs of infection, which might be why some cases go unidentified. And once anthrax has progressed, it can be difficult to diagnose as well. There are a few different forms of the disease, and each presents differently. There's cutaneous anthrax, which appears as a skin lesion and generally has the highest survival rate. Then there's inhalational anthrax, which attacks the lungs. This form has a lower survival rate unless treatment is started right away. Gastrointestinal anthrax affects the digestive system and has the lowest survival rate of all. Again, if treatment begins early enough, there's a good chance a person will survive. But sometimes it can be too late, as it was for 7 people who died from anthrax between 2003 and 2013. Now, some people may be at higher risk of severe illness. People whose jobs require close contact with animals or animal products are more likely to develop anthrax. And people who work with or near the bacteria in labs are also at higher risk. Additionally, the elderly and very young are more susceptible to developing severe illness, as are people whose immune systems are compromised by other illnesses. So knowing all this, you might be wondering how we defend ourselves against anthrax. Well, thankfully, there is a vaccine. The first version was developed in 1941, and it's still in use today, though it's only available to people at high risk of exposure. And this isn't the only tool we have to fight anthrax. Antibiotics can also treat and even prevent anthrax. They're most effective when administered right after exposure, or in the earlier stages of illness. And although it's a scary disease, it helps to know that anthrax is treatable, despite its ancient origins and terrifying reputation. You might be thinking, wow, anthrax really has stuck around a long time. And you're right, but it turns out that anthrax isn't as new to us as you might have initially thought. We were unknowingly living alongside anthrax for thousands of years before we knew what caused it. In fact, there's some evidence that people who lived during the Neolithic Revolution may have intentionally spread anthrax. And it wasn't malicious. Instead, it was a way to ensure a steady supply of meat. Humans probably didn't set out to cause an epidemic. Instead, the theory goes that they noticed that when animals died from anthrax, their carcasses were quickly picked clean by scavengers. So they began throwing sick animals back into their herds so that the animals would die, providing them with free meat. That means that humans may have been inadvertently selecting for more virulent strains of anthrax. Because anthrax spread so easily, the versions of the bacteria that killed herds of animals quickly became the most common. As for how they spread anthrax around, well, scientists aren't exactly sure. Evidence suggests that infected meat could have been transported along with people as they migrated. Infected hides might have been used as blankets or clothing. And infected wool might have been used to make tents or mats. All of these would have put people into contact with the bacteria. And while anthrax is rare today, it's been identified in some of the oldest known human remains. This suggests that it has been with us since the beginning of our history. Of course, this isn't the only way anthrax has affected humans. The disease has been weaponized. During World War I, Germany created a biological weapon program, and one of its targets was anthrax. The goal was to infect horses and cattle, causing them to sicken and die. But the plan never came to fruition. However, during World War II, the United States, the UK and France all created weapons that could deliver anthrax spores via bombs or rockets. These weapons were never used, but they were tested. In 1943, a US military test of an anthrax bomb in Utah went awry. While the area was supposed to be evacuated before the test, a group of people remained. One man was exposed to enough anthrax to become sick and he recovered. But the event led to changes in how these tests were planned and conducted. As for whether any of these weapons were ever deployed, well, we don't know for sure. But we do know that in 2001, letters containing anthrax spores were sent to media organizations and to senators. The perpetrator committed suicide, and no one else was harmed. But it's one of the most recent examples of how dangerous anthrax can be. But anthrax has affected more than people. Anthrax is known to have devastated reindeer populations. An outbreak in Norway in the 1980s killed nearly half of the reindeer in the country. In Sweden, researchers estimate that 15% of reindeer have died from anthrax over the last 40 years, and we may be contributing to these outbreaks. Climate change may be leading to more cases of anthrax. As temperatures rise, ice melts, releasing bacteria that has been trapped. That's what happened in northern Russia in 2016, when a spike in temperature led to an increase in anthrax cases. More than 2,000 reindeer died, and dozens of people were infected. Of course, anthrax can affect other animals besides reindeer, like wild and domestic cattle, sheep, goats, pigs and camels. And it can also infect non-mammals like birds and reptiles. But animals aren't the only ones who need to worry. Humans can also get anthrax, and if you've made it this far, you're probably worried you'll get sick. So let me ease your mind a bit. While it's true that anyone can get anthrax, most people who are exposed to the bacteria don't develop symptoms. For the people who do get sick, most can be treated and recover with antibiotics. And there's another thing you should know. Anthrax is not a bioweapon. Even if you come into contact with the bacteria, you won't necessarily get sick. And if you do get sick, you can be treated. So anthrax might be one of the world's oldest known diseases, but it's nothing to worry about. Well, maybe it is something to worry about, but not in the way you might expect. If you want to learn more about anthrax, check out the resources in the description. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an awesome science video. And finally, if you have a friend who loves learning about diseases as much as you do, consider gifting them a subscription. It's the gift that keeps on giving.